Get started. It's 1 o'clock, and welcome everyone to one of the Food Tech and Wellness Forum panels. This is the 1 o'clock session focusing on transforming the food culture and food industry. And so thank you again for coming out. We have a great panel for you today, and we're going to, kind of the format will be, we'll do some introductions, we'll do some initial questions, we'll have kind of an interactive dialogue for the bulk of the session, and then we'll try to save some room at the end of the time for some Q&A. Otherwise, I'm sure folks will stick around and you can ask questions offline as well. So if you have a question, just signal me and save it to the end, and I'll get to you guys at the end of the session, and we'll go from there. So my name's Mark Kupczynski. I'm going to be your moderator for today, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and your company and tell us a little bit about your background. So Wendy, will you start us off?
I'd love to. My name is Wendy Coleman, and I'm the founder. Is that good? I'm the founder of LA Urban Farms, and we're using
LA Urban Farms.
LA Urban Farms, and we're using aeroponic vertical gardens to grow healthy food. And these gardens are really amazing. You can grow fruits and vegetables and herbs and edible flowers, and they use 90% less water than traditional gardens because the water's being recirculated in the system until the plants absorb it or it evaporates. And we're able to grow 10 times more in the same amount of space because the gardens are growing up. So there's this great opportunity that exists to think about all the unused spaces that are around us and how we can claim those unused spaces to grow, wonderful, healthy, local food in abundance. So thinking about like rooftops and parking lots and balconies and patios, terraces, unused buildings and warehouses. And it's really exciting to think about the potential of being able to grow local food right in the community that we live in. So
any kind of food?
Well, actually, that's a really good question. So you can grow anything that doesn't grow on a tree, like an apple, or that's a root vegetable, like a beet. You could tomatoes? Tomatoes, yeah. Tomatoes, great. You could do like mini carrots and things like that, but they'd have to be small enough to fit through the growing port of the vertical garden. So they're better grown in the raised bed.
Got it.
Things like that.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, welcome, Wendy.
Thank you so much.
And Christian, you want to go next?
Yep. I'm Christian. I run the brand and marketing team at the Farm Project, a public benefit corporation founded by Zoe Deschanel and Jacob Pachenik. And we founded an initiative called Let Us Grow, which actually works very closely with LA Urban Farms. We use their aeroponic vertical growing devices, but we provide a service that kind of pampers users into anything they don't want to do. So we do the sprouting of the seedlings, we do the maintenance of the devices, and we do the harvests as well. So we work with a lot of restaurants and food businesses that grow on their premises but don't have time to be a farmer, basically. So we are their outsourced farming team.
What's your background, Christian?
I'm from Germany, if that's your question.
So you're growing your own hops to make your own beer?
I was dead. No, yeah, you got me. No, I don't have any food background, which is something unique in this conference. Maybe I worked as a brand and marketing and business consultant for the last 15 years, mainly for the automotive industry. And I've worked in Germany and China and now in the US. And I joined the Farm Project because I believe if we can change food, we can change the world. And that's what we're here for.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Christian.
Thank you.
Mel, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
My name is Mel Nicola, and for the past 19 years, I've worked in the hospitality industry. And about 5 years ago, I started my own nonprofit called CAKE, Culinary Arts Kids Eat. And we're in a high school in South Central Los Angeles. So I would start my morning would be in Beverly Hills, and my afternoon would be in South Central. And by the time I drove through Hollywood, I found balance. CAKE inspires youth to live a healthy lifestyle. Our youth are living in the most underserved neighborhood in the country. There's a lack of green space, lack of healthy fresh food, and 1 out of 4 youth are living with a preventable disease. Well, CAKE has come across many youth who want to change the way they live, and they want to rise up out of poverty. So we developed a program that will help them through this. They grow their own food in the soil, hydroponically as well. They study health, wellness, and nutrition, practice mindful meditation, stress management, and yoga, create their own fresh, healthy food and their own cookbook called From Our Hood to Yours. They become social entrepreneurs, they're agents of change, and ambassadors of health. And our goal is to change the way our youth are eating lunch and transform the lunchroom into scratch cooking, and in 2020 to bring a market cafe, which is co-op, to South LA.
Awesome. Mel, one follow-up. So weren't you also mentioning that like the kids actually give back, like so that when they produce their cookbooks,
They're social entrepreneurs.
yeah, they return the funds
They
to
return
pay it
some of the
forward?
funds. They hold on to some of it for their.
Can you just
They hold on to some of the funds for their use, and they give back to a nonprofit of their choice.
awesome job. Thank you. So Ryland, do you want to go next and tell us a little bit about your story and your journey?
Thank you. My name is Ryland Engelhart, and I am one of the owners of Cafe Gratitude and Gracias Madre, and also Gratitude. It's a family business that we started 14 years ago in San Francisco, bringing plant-based organic food to the mainstream. And we've been here in Los Angeles for the last 7 years, and we have 7 restaurants here in Southern California. And really, what I've seen happen over the last 14 years around the transformation of health and wellness. I thought this morning that we were doing health and wellness before there was a health and wellness space. It's really neat to see that. I remember doing cold brew coffee 14 years ago when that wasn't in the lexicon of language, and now to see 7-Eleven billboards serving cold brew coffee. So it's an interesting shift, but it's shift nonetheless. And then my second passion is soil and regenerative agriculture. I founded an organization 6 years ago called Kiss the Ground, which really is founded and is designed to inspire participation in the regeneration of the planet, starting with soil, really communicating and encouraging and advocating that through regenerative agriculture and through soil, we can not only feed the world, but we also can simultaneously cool the planet by reversing global warming. And so I've been working on that as my passion project, in addition to running the restaurants with my family.
How many restaurants do you have here in LA now?
We have 5 restaurants here in Los Angeles, and then 1 in San Diego, 1 in Newport Beach, and then we have an original restaurant in San Francisco called Gracias Madre as well.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Mark, or I guess, am I supposed to say Farmer Mark?
Your choice.
I'm going with Farmer Mark today.
Okay.
Farmer Mark, tell us your story.
Yes, my name is Mark Anderson. I'm known as Farmer Mark. Our organization operates certified farmers markets. We have 5 locations in the cities of Playa Vista, Westwood Village, Hermosa Beach, Costa Mesa, and Newport Beach. And I have kind of a typical LA story of moving from the Midwest out to LA to get into farming. Was an investment banker in Chicago and moved out to LA to get my MBA at UCLA. And then just happenstance got me involved in this vegetable seed industry, which transitioned into farming, which then transitioned into farmers markets.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the things you do at your farmers markets? Because I think it was kind of interesting, some of the cultural elements that you try to bring into it as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely our markets are kind of on the small to medium-sized scale, if you think about the farmers markets around LA. And so we really have a all things local theme. So in addition to the farmers, which are our main emphasis and support, we run Farmers First markets, but we also do have local artisan food vendors and arts and crafters and offer opportunities for local businesses. So we really want our markets to be a community gathering place. The typical town square no longer exists in a lot of communities, so the farmers markets have really replaced that as a gathering ground for people to get together and see their neighbors, and doing it all in the name of local food, supporting local farmers is really, really important to me.
Thank you. I think from our prep call, one of the things I took away was like the fact that you're trying to get people to actually even know the names of some of the local farms so that people even know where their food's really even coming from. So.
Yeah, it's very important. A lot of people, even that shop at farmers markets, they don't even kind of remember the name of the farmer that they buy from each week, but they know kind of where their booth is located or the face. So we really kind of make sure they have big banners, and we really try to kind of personalize them and get their names, personal names, as well as farm names across as much as we can.
Cool. Awesome. Well, welcome all of you. So what we're going to start with is I'm going to ask you guys all one sort of common question that I'd love to get your thoughts on as it relates to the theme, and then we'll just kind of build from there. So Wendy, I'm going to start with you. So, part of the theme is just like how the food industry is being, I guess, disrupted, or how you guys all collectively are bringing disruption to the broader food industry. Tell us your story about that. What's your take on how you're disrupting the food industry, and what's needed to be disrupted?
Sure. So I would definitely, I feel so grateful to have found my passion. Really it's just inspiring and empowering people to grow their own healthy food. And there's so many cool ways to do it. And this, we're using these vertical gardens, but it's really just one way. It's just a representation of our values of really saying that we really want to empower people to grow their own food, because when you grow your own food or you support local food, it's not grown with pesticides, it's more nutritious for you, and it's better for the planet because your food's not having to travel to get to your plate, wasting valuable resources and, adding additional carbon, leading to climate change. So we're all for that. And as far as how we think that we can transform the food industry in general, I think it's three things. I think if there were common guidelines that were agreed upon by all, so that the way that food was grown in the future, nourished all the people who grew it, nourished all the people who consumed it, and all the beings on the planet. That would be, the hope and the dream and the goal. And we're, with our vertical gardens, we're hoping that we're inspiring sustainability. They are using 90% less water because the water is being recirculated in the system. So that's a wonderful water-saving feature. And we're using less land because we're growing up. And there's no, it's like $1 a month for each one of these vertical gardens to actually work. And we're not using any harmful pesticides, and we're using all organic, seeds and all, food grade plastic. So hoping that all those choices lead, together to create a really wonderful, sustainable impact. That's our goal.
Can you also just speak to like the adoption? Sure. Like how are people adopting it? Like, are you seeing people are like, I'm not going to do that, or yeah, that's easy, I want to do it. Like, what's kind of the adoption rate around it? Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, it's really, we were the first ones, I think, in Los Angeles to really do it in a very visible way. And so there were 2 other rooftop farms that existed with this technology, but they were private, and so you didn't have access to them. So our goal was to really put them in highly visible locations to create an awareness just for another way you could grow your own food in addition to soil and all the other cool ways that you can grow food. And it's really been overwhelmingly positive. I think people are not used to seeing their food grow vertical, so they get so excited. They don't realize that you don't always have to have soil. You can grow with water and nutrients, and they feel very empowered when they learn they can do it themselves. And so now, we work with families in their backyard and with top chefs at restaurants and resorts, universities and businesses, all the way to growing in greenhouses for major food production. So it's been overwhelmingly positive, and I'm so excited, like I said, to have found a passion. Terrific. Well, thank you for that. Christian, tell us your story. What's really needed to transform the food industry in your mind?
Yeah, I think every installation that Wendy is talking about is transforming the food industry in a very little and substantial and accumulating way. But I think looking at it more from a broader perspective, I think there's these 2 poles almost, where on one hand, I think consumer mindsets need to change, and on the other hand, more systemic infrastructure part of the industry needs to change. And I think consumers need to be more empowered to vote with their dollars for better choices and a better food system.
Sorry. Sorry, Christian.
It's her husband.
It was my husband.
And on the other side,
sprinklers on.
On the other side, the infrastructure, the systemic infrastructure needs to change as well to accommodate that change. So I think only when these 2 things come together is the industry going to change. And looking at kind of small farmers today basically being shut out from mainstream distribution, while consumers or mainstream consumers still have difficulty accessing affordable, fresh food, both sides need to change.
Got it. Seems like a big problem. Does it start, you think, like with the chefs at the restaurants, or where do you start?
Well, I think I read something that I think chefs control, or restaurants control 50% of our food dollars. So I think every chef that converts to a better method or better sourcing makes a huge difference. I think the big challenge that we have ahead of us is kind of affordability and accessibility. So I think once we manage to change the system in a way that local, fresh, real food becomes affordable and accessible to large parts of our communities, and then the food system will start changing, or then it maybe has changed already.
Mel, what's your story around what's needed to be changed here? I mean, and you came from the restaurant industry, right? So,
I'm going to jump on also what Christian just said, that by educating our youth as early as we possibly can would be the quintessential way to change what we know about food and what we need to know about food. And my feeling is everything you need to know about life you can learn in the garden or the kitchen. And that's it. You don't need anything else. So I would just go back to, as soon as we can educate our youth, and we need to change out the way we are educating our youth, because I don't believe that we're doing them much good by continuing very, very old methods, and which are not going to help them today in today's professional society. So the more we can get information to them about how things grow, and they understand the planet and the way everything works, then they'll when they're older, they'll be more than willing to make the changes that we're asking for today. So it's definitely education is the key for me.
terrific. Ron?
So the question is, how do we disrupt it?
What's really needed to transform the overall industry in your perspective?
Yeah, it's such a big question. I almost don't even know how to answer that question, but what I do know is that...
What do we have to get McDonald's to do?
No, what I do know is what I've experienced in my life experience, and taking information that's true, real, and bringing it to people and packaging it in a way that is interesting, delicious, and beautiful has so much power. Someone said earlier, a Tesla is sexy, farming is not. And so young people want to be involved in technology because it's this kind of sexy thing. One of the things that we've been doing with Kiss the Ground is really, through media, creating beauty around being a farmer and being someone who cares for the earth, and making that a meme, making that visually the thing that young people are aspiring towards, that stewardship is actually one of the most beautiful, virtuous things that we could be doing on planet Earth. And really having that education. We have a curriculum called the Soil Story Education that's designed and free for 6th grade classrooms, designed because, yes, we need young people to have this awareness and start building their lives on this awareness. But that's one prong. From the Cafe Gratitude perspective, we came to Los Angeles 7 years ago and opened a restaurant that and really the intention to come to Los Angeles, again speaking at Digital Hollywood event, was, we know that this is the microcosm of culture and influence around the world, and if we can make something cool and beautiful and here, then it has the potential to scale and become a broad adopted culture. So that was actually the reason we came to Los Angeles, was actually to hopefully demonstrate the beauty, the accessibility, and the yumminess of plant-based food and the importance of organic plant-based food, and that would then become something that was broadly accepted. And to now see shirts that say kale like Yale and, you know, Beyonce wearing them. I mean, that's, you know, we've come a long way from the hippy dippies on the turnip truck going, yeah, we got to compost. And, you know, so it, you know, we have to make it look beautiful and we have to package it in a way.
Could you do that again? I'm not
Yeah.
just like,
That's my turnip truck guy.
it's not here, folks.
And, you know, so, I mean, it's an interesting thing because I'm part of a family that very of the earth family that lived in a yurt and pooped in a composting toilet, and our partners are from Beverly Hills. And, you know, it was actually through the mergence of those two philosophies that allowed something that probably would have stayed very niche and very kind of fringe and became very mainstream. So it's kind of for those that, you know, the condor and the eagle flying together, that kind of earth-based mind, and then connecting to the technology and the systems coming together to have that philosophy be packaged so we can all adopt it and say, this is what we've been looking for.
Cool. Thanks, Ren. Farmer Mark,
Yeah, I mean, I think
what's needed to transform all this?
Well, I think farmers markets are going at it by going back to the basics and kind of, you know, what's old is new, and I think that's really kind of important. But what I think really needs to be done is, you know, people need to apply the brakes and just slow down, especially when it comes to their food and how they do it. And so plug in for the slow food movement in regards to that. But it really is kind of important to think more about your food, spend more time with it, and unfortunately spend more on it. And so I do think people need to reallocate their food spending, or excuse me, overall spending habits, and put more towards food, because we're one of the, in terms of industrialized countries out there, we're at the low end of the totem pole as in terms of the percentage of money we spend on food.
Yeah.
And so that's.
So I guess I want to kind of come back to, I got to pick on you, Rylan, first, since you did the hippy dippy dance.
Cool.
So, I mean, the general population probably does think that growing your own food is either too hard or too difficult or cumbersome, or they don't see the benefit, or it is hippy dippy. What's your take on that? And then, you know, folks on the panel, I'd love to have some additional thoughts to that. So, Rylan, how do we break the cycle that the average, you know, person thinks that this may be hippy dippy, or it's too difficult, or just
Well, it's just, I mean,
isn't enough
it is
the ROI.
it is difficult. Let's just be honest. Growing food is not easy. But
could you lie to me?
I could, but I don't want to.
Okay.
So the reality is we've built our lives around distraction and entertainment, and then think, oh, it takes too much time away from distraction and entertainment to actually nourish, take care of my body, and take care of the planet. I mean, so the big deal is we have to look at what are our priorities. What is the objective?
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's what we're waking up to, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, the reality is that the health of our food is the health of our lives, which is the health of our planet.
Yeah.
And when, as I said earlier, when we can make that, you know, we have to bridge. Again, I'm speaking, you know, but we have to make things bridgeable to where people are right now,
Yeah.
but encourage them to come towards the direction of, I mean, to live a life growing food and feeding people healthy food is
key. Yeah.
I mean, I just can't. There's not a lot of people I could look in the face and they'd tell me that, you know, that's a waste of time, or that's
Right, sure.
not important work. And yeah, please
Christian, I
share.
want you to chime in, because I mean, you've tried to operationalize some of this, so maybe you can kind of comment on.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two developments going on, or like your question is kind of two-pronged. I think on one hand, like you say, farming is really not easy. So I think all the farmers that I've talked to, they're struggling with, you know, day-to-day operations. They need to know how to grow food. They need to know how to work a spreadsheet, be an accountant, be a small business owner, run a business, negotiate with customers, etc. So it's a tough job, and I don't think it has a lot of like everyday spiritual moments. So that maybe just to take the magic away from farming. I'm happy I don't have to do all of this. And at the same time, more and more people are starting to grow their own food. So I think not a lot of people want to become farmers, but a lot of people want to get back in touch with their food and reconnect with how food is grown. And that's a very positive development, that this is getting, like, the numbers are getting more and more and more, and that's kind of why our businesses are also flourishing, I think, and that's a great development.
Mark, from a farmer's perspective, I mean, what's your take on this? Do people think you're hippy dippy, and do they think what you do is too hard?
I mean, I'm not farming anymore, but in terms of the farmer's market, there still is that stereotype out there that it is hippy-dippy, and so some people are turned off by that or are kind of uncomfortable coming to a farmer's market. So I really see that as one of our important goals, is to break down that barrier, make everybody feel comfortable at the market. And so we really try to educate people, equip people with the right questions to be able to ask, and we have staff on site that'll kind of help guide you through the process if you have any concerns. So we really operate under kind of no dumb questions are out there.
Got it. Wendy?
I like this question. I think, so the vertical gardens that we use actually, started at Walt Disney World. There's an exhibit called The Land, where they grow plants from all over the world with many different hydroponic systems and over like 100 different food crops. And the developer of the technology, who was the chief horticulture of that exhibit for 12 years, people would always visit and say, how can we do something like this in our own home or have our own urban farms? And so he developed these vertical gardens that we use today, that are actually really super simple and easy for us all to be 21st century urban farmers. But I will say I'm not the farmer. I just the enthusiasm make that Kristen's team is. But we do have gardens in our backyard, and it's really amazing. Like, each garden probably takes 15 minutes of work a week. You just have to add the water and add your nutrients and check your pH and look for any bugs and take off any yellow leaves. And then on the larger scale, on the urban farms, they can be automated. So the way that it works, there's just like a float valve in each one, and when the water gets low, the water and the nutrients are automatically added, and the pH is kept within range. And so it really makes it possible, for us all to be 21st century urban farmers with this technology, which is really exciting about it.
That's cool.
And they can go places where normally people maybe don't have space to grow, or maybe where the soil's not healthy for growing. And so now there's this opportunity to grow food, right at a restaurant if they don't have a lot of space, for example. Or one of our projects is in the Bahamas, where they had tons of land, but the soil just wasn't healthy, and now they don't have to import a lot of their leafy greens and herbs.
So one thing that kind of came to mind as you guys were talking about this, and maybe Mel, I'll start with you, and maybe Mark as well. Are there investment dollars to support you guys, or how do you end up funding all of these efforts, and how do you sort of survive to keep continuing on the mission that you're on? Start with you.
Well, for the nonprofit I have, we write all our own grants. We write all our own grants. So we are at LAUSD High School, but we get no funding from LAUSD. So we have individual donors, and we do fundraising events, and we're continuously writing grants every minute we can. So that's one way to sustain, what we're doing. And I think that the more that people can connect with us, we have lots of volunteers that come to our kitchen, and the more people that can come and see what we're doing, we end up seeing a donation will usually come in the mail soon after that. So the more we can engage people to come in and participate with us, the more they feel connected to us. And I think that that's what this is all about, the connection to each other, from human to humanity, and from us to the land. And I just want to also mention that it doesn't cost a fortune to do hydroponic gardening. I mean, our students have used recycled items to make their own hydroponic units. And for those of us that can't afford to purchase them, you can actually do this. And that's what we're growing right now. We're right outside our kitchen. We've created it ourselves. We've watched it, we put it together, and they've planted everything. So it's easy to do. You just have to kind of, find your way and say, this is what I'm going to do today.
Mark, can you kind of comment both from what you're currently doing and maybe with putting your investment banker hat on for a second? Are there investors investing in the space, and how do you generate the revenues and stuff to make this a viable business and so on?
Not really seeing kind of investors at the kind of the level that I'm at. There are kind of grants out there. As an organization, we've tried to not be reliant on that because you never know kind of if it's going to be available the next year. So we've really tried to be self-sustaining in that front. There are some good kind of continuity funds or kind of funds being built out there for great programs, especially Market Match, which is an opportunity for lower income people to be able to kind of get their dollars spent at the farmers markets doubled. And so that's a great kind of investment area that's been out there. It started really kind of with some private funding, but now has gone into kind of some government funding and some coalitions putting together some resources. But for our level, it's really kind of, we need to think about being self-sustained, but also do get great support from volunteers to help with a lot of initiatives as well.
Got it. Wendy, do you want to make a comment on that?
Sure. I don't think there's a lot of money in urban farming, but we're lucky that we have other family businesses that can support LA Urban Farms and allow us to spread this vision for another option for growing your own healthy food. So I'm really, really grateful for that. And there are, for the urban farms that we actually do sell, there is financing available. So like with 25% down, you can get into urban farming. And there's also monthly plans for people that just want to buy residential gardens. And for us, it's been great because we've been able to make some really meaningful donations. So for example, we grow for our Los Angeles Mayor, Eric Garcetti, at the Getty House. We were able to make an in-kind donation in his backyard in probably just 18 feet of space. We're growing like almost 700, fruits and vegetables and herbs and edible flowers, and all the produce that's grown there, is first enjoyed by the mayor and his family, and then what they can't, finish eating, we donate to a wonderful homeless shelter in downtown Los Angeles called the People Concern, and they provide, temporary and permanent housing for the homeless, and also, donations to places like the LA Mission. They have an amazing rooftop, and we have a goal to fill it with 300 vertical gardens, and actually it's really cool. Our goal is to have 300 vertical gardens and have the water come made from humidity from the air and be powered by the sun. So we're super excited about those kind of projects. Thank you.
Terrific. Rylan, I'm actually going to come to you next. What's the role of media in all of this? You said you came to LA, right, to be in the hub of media. We're here at Digital Hollywood. What's the role of media in helping you support your mission? And how do you take advantage of it?
Yeah, I think it's so important. I think we're all inside of a narrative. Our culture is inside of a narrative that was shaped by media. And actually the whole genesis and creation of Kiss the Ground, my nonprofit, was based around this idea that I felt like was an idea whose time has come, which is that we can actually, there's a solution to climate change. We can actually pull that carbon and put it into the soil. And I thought the best way to spread that narrative was to create beautiful, impactful, inspiring media. So we created something called The Soil Story, and we launched that 5 years ago in coalition with Governor Brown's Healthy Soil Initiative, and we got 23,000 signatures in California to sign on to support the Healthy Soils Initiative. But I mean, essentially, since we have a media company called, it's basically a media company communicating this potentiality of regenerative agriculture, and because we've been able to tell this story and use media to share it, there's now we're part of a global network of people working on this same issue that we would have maybe just been connected to a bunch of people in Venice or in LA, but now because of media, we've actually been able to wrap the planet with a network of people all working, sharing resources, sharing information around. So I think it's hugely important, but it's about changing the story.
That's great. Mel, do you have, how do you leverage media, and what do you see the role of media here?
I just got onto Instagram this year. And I'll tell you, I'm loving it. But, and it's the way for us to tell the story in such a quick way. I mean, I was looking in the dark, where was I? But, but I see that it's up to the digital community. I mean, it is your reason to be is to tell the story of how we can move from where we're at now to where we need to be so that we do preserve life on the planet. And this is a very heavy concept, I know, but you will be the ones to tell the story and to tell it in many different ways. It doesn't have to be told, in just one way, but I often think of maybe take a show like Vice, but call it nice.
I like that.
And you
No one's
go,
gonna watch this show.
and you go around
I will.
and you look at people who are doing things like everybody here today. All of the people, what they're doing, what are the challenges? What are the obstacles? How can I get it, how can I make it happen? This would be a wonderful show. I mean, there's certainly a ton of content if you come to my kitchen on a Wednesday in South Central, believe me. So please come, I invite you to come, and there'll be tons of content for you. But the overall larger scope would be, this is how we can create a pathway and a bridge to the next phase that we will need to live. And you can explore it any way you can, and it will help all of us. It will guide us.
Terrific. Thank you for that. Wendy, I want to come back to you again, because I think one of the things that you had mentioned on the prep call was your vertical gardens are almost like pieces of artwork. So can you kind of comment on that and kind of what's your thought on the role of media here helping you?
Sure. I think the role of media has really been huge. I mean, first of all, just in bringing everybody back in touch with the connection of, their food and being able to make, really great informative choices about the food that we consume and the food systems that we support and the food that we, choose to buy. We can make, better decisions about it, which is really, really wonderful. And then for us personally, I think that having third-party endorsements, for example, from many of the top chefs that we grow for, like one of them is Chef Timothy Hollingsworth at OTM. He's just a rock star chef. If you haven't been to his restaurant, it's unbelievable. It's by the Broad Museum, and we have 24 of the gardens on his mezzanine, and there's a farm table right in the middle. So he literally brought the farm to the table, just like a foot away, and it's amazing. There's been so many stories, written about just that project, and I think that having his endorsement, it just makes it more inspires other people to want to think about how they could grow their own food with any different system that works in their setting. I think there's different systems for different settings. Also, like world-class universities that we grow for, we have 100 of the gardens on the campus of USC, where we grow for the executive chef on the campus, and Chef Eric Ernest, and they've won many innovation awards and have lots of media around that. Same at UCLA as well. So anytime that gets published, now a lot of universities call us. So for example, we just put them in the dining halls at Yale University and Brown University and Michigan and Auburn and Florida. And so it just is sort of like one thing leads to the other. But I think that third-party endorsement has really has been huge. And a lot of times, for these chefs, that's the first question they're asked is, where's your food come from and what's your seasonal menu like?
Yeah.
And so whether it's in a raised bed or with our vertical garden, it's a big part of the story.
That's great. Mark, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think perhaps speaking on behalf of the panel, but maybe not, I think we're all very proud of food porn and its popularity, because I think in media, kind of the pictures that go on Instagram, a lot of that are surrounding food, and at the farmers markets is a very picturesque setting, and people like to take pictures and spread that information, so I find it very helpful for our mission.
That's great. Well, sure, Ryan.
Yeah, one other thing, and again, inside of the importance of media, we've produced a feature-length film called Kiss the Ground, which is due to be out in the end of 2019, and the goal of that film is to do an American farmland tour where we show that film and then create a scholarship fund that we can basically have people be inspired. Farmers are the face and the stars of the film, and then we're basically create a fund that we could give scholarships to large-scale American farmers to go from a degenerative agricultural system towards a regenerative system. And so the opportunity to really make impact, because you kind of have this aha, and then you've given people a pathway to take action.
Got it. That's great. Well, speaking of taking action, given that how we're running out of time, unfortunately, but I want to get to probably one of the more important questions as we close out. What can people do today? Like, what are the actions that someone can actually dive in and start working on? And so, Christian, I'm going to pick on you first here.
Sure.
What can people actually do today? Like, what's going to get them out there working, growing their own food, et cetera? What starts the path in your mind?
empowering yourself to ask the right questions about where our food comes from. Go meet a farmer, go talk to someone who grows food, and then vote with your dollars. Like, make better choices, grow your own food, and look at labels, understand labels, and just buy stuff that's good for you and for the planet.
Sorry.
That's
Great
it.
quote.
Like, there's no more.
Mel, do you want to go next? What can people do today? How do they get involved?
You know, in LA, I think that if you're interested, you could contact the American Heart Association, and you could say, I'd like to volunteer to help put in a community garden. And you could do that, and it could take you a half a day, and they'll connect you with a community garden near where you live, and you could go and check it out and see if it's something you'd be interested in doing. And they're doing soil gardening, but there's certainly, I'm sure we could get you in touch with lots of others that are doing all of the hydroponic and the aquaponics as well. But start there. Give yourself the question, what can I do? How can I change the world? What is my purpose? How can I activate the purpose? Ask the question, and then make the phone call.
Awesome. Terrific. Wendy.
I think there's many simple things that we can all do to really make impactful differences. You know, when we eat at restaurants, choose restaurants like Ryland's restaurants that are growing their own food or sourcing local food and using food that's not grown with pesticides. That's a really important choice that we can make. Also, not buying food ourselves that we know is grown with pesticides, because it's not good for us and it's not good for the planet. And I really think you can be considered an urban farmer if you just have a little basil plant in your windowsill, because it's really true. There's something so special about planting a seed and watching it grow into a little baby seedling and then to a full mature plant that you can harvest and enjoy. It's a different connection that you feel to your food because you understand the journey that it took to get to your plate. So it's not just a piece of food. And there's a different connection. I think when you feel that connection, you make better choices for yourself, which as a result makes a better choice for the environment.
Terrific. Ryland.
Beautiful. It's actually just auspicious. We have Kiss the Ground launched a purchasing guide today. So it's a really, really beautiful, fully comprehensive how to think about purchasing food. And there's actually simultaneously right now a Facebook Live happening, launching our purchasing guide. So it's a free thing, it's a downloadable, and it really just has you create a context and gives you ways to think about how to purchase in ways that really empowers farmers, soil, water, humanity. So that's one thing. I love, have this be the year that you plant something and watch it grow. It's it's a sincere, beautiful thing to actually have that tactile experience of nurturing life and being the catalyst for life. So it sounds insignificant, but actually do it and see if it's insignificant or see if it's profound. And then, we this has been said so many times, but we eat 3 meals a day, and it is our interface with nature. It is our interface with, in a big way, what is the future of our planet. And we don't want, the cost of food is prohibitive, especially better quality food, but it really is, the vote that is making the most meaningful difference that from my view. So voting with our dollars and asking questions and going to farmers markets and getting to know the people who produce your food.
Thanks, Ron. Mark.
Yep, so that's definitely my main goal or kind of communication is to get to know where your food comes from, get to know who's growing it. So I throw out a challenge to everybody that within the next week that you shake the hand of a farmer.
Love that.
Everybody has a farmer's market near them. I don't count. Everyone has a farmer's market near you, so it shouldn't be that hard.
Appreciate that. It was just as we're wrapping up here, I actually got one more quick question. So a lot of what I feel like you've been talking about today as a panel has been stuff that you grow, and it feels like plant-based. What's the story here with like proteins and meats and other things in this sort of space? You want to tackle that, Ryland?
Sure, that's not what I was going to talk about, but
But I would like to, I mean, 'cause,
Okay.
I mean,
Everyone's
because
looking
I
scared.
mean, the one thing, like,
Unexpected
I don't want this to, you know, like, the takeaway to just be like, hey, we should all become vegetarians or something, right?
Yeah.
Because people do like, you know, meats and other things. So
Totally.
what's the story that ties into this from a protein standpoint like that?
okay. So I just wanted, can I say one thing before I tackle that?
Real
So
quick, because we're almost out of time.
again, the one thing you can do in LA, we have a dish on the menu at Cafe Gratitude called the Farmland Program, and for every dish, $2 goes into a scholarship fund that trains farmers in how to build soil. So
great.
that's and that is a program that can be adopted at any restaurant to where a restaurateur gets to acknowledge that they're doing something cool, and actually resources get channeled into changing the supply chain. So that's a really cool thing that's happening. And meat. I didn't eat a hamburger until I was 35 years old.
Wow.
And I've been the head of a plant-based organization for the last 15 years. And we started farming about 10, 12 years ago. And we realized that to do natural farming in a way that has an ecosystem approach, that animals are a part of nature just like animals need to be a part of natural farming. And so, you know, I think the big billboard is eat more plants. Have a plant-rich diet. That's the top billboard. And then there's a more subtle, nuanced billboard underneath that, which is we actually need animals to regenerate land. And that's just the cold, hard truth and reality of observing ecosystem function. Grasslands need, agricultural land used to be grasslands, and if we don't have animals that are cycling nutrients, that land continues to desertify and die. And so we moved to our farm 10, 12 years ago in Northern California, raw food vegans, growing vegetables for our vegan restaurants, and we started interviewing farmers and working with farmers and learning how organic agriculture worked, and started seeing, whoa, we're taking cow poop from really atrocious situations, we're taking fish emulsion that came, you know, and we're taking blood meal and we're putting that to grow vegetables, but yet we're, you know, okay, we don't want to be responsible for this, but it seems necessary. And so we started, you know, having cows living on the land.
Nice.
To actually harvest that solar energy, the grasslands, which we can't extract that nutrients, and they would then have that acre of land continue to stay healthy year after year, and every so often you could put and plant annual vegetables to extract that nutrition that the cows were able to cycle through into that soil. So animals, the big billboard is still plant.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're out of time.
All right, good. Sorry. You can see I got a few things to say about that.
I can
Sorry.
listen to you all day, but
Yeah.
we're getting
We got
high
timeline.
side. So,
Got it.
Anyway, I want to thank you guys all for staying and listening, and most importantly, let's give a round of applause to our panelists, Wendy, Christian, Mel, Ryland, and Farmer Mark at the end. Thank you guys. Enjoy the rest of Digital Hollywood. Thank you guys.